There are sporting moments that linger only as long as the news cycle, and there are sporting moments that etch themselves permanently into the collective memory of a discipline. What Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara accomplished at the Milan-Cortina Olympics belongs unmistakably to the second category. On a single February evening, a Japanese pair who had been written off by the cold logic of the scoreboard rose up, skated the program of their lives, and walked away with a gold medal that no one, not the bookmakers, not the broadcasters, not even, perhaps, the skaters themselves 24 hours earlier had truly believed was possible. This is the story of that night, of the reactions that rippled across the world in its wake, and of the quiet, human moments that made it more than just another podium. To understand why this victory resonated so deeply, you first have to understand how unlikely it looked the day before. When the pair's short program concluded on the eve of the free skate, Miura and Kihara, reigning world champions, a pair who had spent years climbing toward exactly this moment, found themselves sitting in fifth place. Fifth. For a team of their caliber, it was an almost surreal position to occupy. The gap separating them from the leaders stood at roughly 7 points, a margin that, in the precise and unforgiving arithmetic of figure skating, is enormous. 7 points is not the kind of deficit a top pair typically erases in a single program. It is the kind of deficit that, under ordinary circumstances, quietly ends a gold medal campaign before the free skate even begins. The mistake had come on a lift in the short program, the sort of element these two had performed flawlessly hundreds of times. And in the immediate aftermath, the emotional toll on Kihara in particular was severe. He would later confess that the night after the short program was one of the worst he could remember. Frustration kept him awake. Sleep, when it came, was shallow and restless. By his own account, when he arrived at the rink for the evening practice the following day, the tears began during the warm-up and simply would not stop. It was a feeling I couldn't understand, he said afterward. Something I had never experienced before. This was not the composed, dependable Kihara that fans and teammates knew. This was a man caught in the undertow of a single error, struggling to find his footing again, and yet the seeds of the comeback were already being planted not by the scoreboard, but by the people around him. Bruno Marcotte, the pair's coach, and one of the most respected minds in pair skating, understood something that the standings did not capture. He understood that the competition was not over. When the two skaters came off the ice after their disappointing short program, the very first thing Marcotte said to them was deceptively simple: "It's not finished yet." And, crucially, he meant it. He did not offer it as the hollow encouragement coaches sometimes dispense to soften a defeat. He believed it with complete conviction. To make his case concrete, Marcotte reached into the history of the sport. He reminded the pair of an example from 8 years earlier, a German pair who had themselves come from behind to seize an Olympic title against the odds. The lesson was clear. The seemingly impossible had been done before, and it could be done again. History was not a wall, it was a doorway. Then he turned to Kihara, the partner still weighed down by his mistake, and reframed the entire challenge. He did not talk about catching up, about closing gaps, about damage control. Instead, he set a far more audacious target. "Your goal today," he told him, "is to become world number one, right here, in this place. Deliver the best performance of your life, and become the best team in the world today, on this ice." It was not a plea to recover lost ground. It was a summons to greatness. Marcotte's assessment of his two skaters revealed the delicate psychology of the moment. Miura, he observed, had been remarkably strong all day, brimming with confidence even after the setback. Kihara was the one who needed rebuilding. During the official practice, the coach noticed his star skater still seemed a little flat, a little drained, but something shifted after a midday nap at the venue. When Kihara returned to the ice, Marcotte saw the transformation he had been hoping for. He had become the wonderful Ryuichi I know so well, the coach recalled, skating beautifully. The man had come back to himself. When the moment finally arrived, what unfolded on the ice was less a competitive routine than an act of catharsis. Skating to the sweeping, martial grandeur of music from Gladiator, Miura and Kihara opened with a triple twist lift of staggering height. Miura launched skyward, suspended for what felt like an impossibly long beat, before settling cleanly back into her partner's hands. From there came a sequence that demanded both nerve and precision: a triple toe loop, followed by a double axel, followed by another double axel. Each landed cleanly. Each flowed into the next without hesitation. But it was the totality of the performance, rather than any single element, that left observers reaching for superlatives. Every lift was graded at level 4, the highest possible mark, an acknowledgement from the technical panel that there was nothing more to ask of them. The throw jumps elements where the smallest miscalculation can send a skater sprawling were executed without so much as a wobble. There was no daylight between intention and result. They had set out to be perfect, and they had been. When the music stopped, the two collapsed into each other's arms, faces flooded with emotion. Kihara wept openly. Miura, her own eyes welling, pulled her partner close. They had done everything within their power. Now all that remained was the agonizing wait to see whether it would be enough. The score, when it appeared, removed all doubt about the quality of what they had done. 158.13 for the free skate, 230, 1.24 inches total. The free skate figure was the highest in the history of the discipline, a world record, posted under the most extreme pressure imaginable, on the largest stage in the sport. And then began the wait that would decide everything. Roughly 40 minutes later, the score for the final pair flashed onto the screen. In that instant, the gold medal was theirs. What happened next became, improbably, one of the most talked about images of the entire games. Rather than remaining in the chairs that had been set out for them, in the kiss and cry area, Miura and Kihara stepped down and lowered themselves into seiza, the formal, upright kneeling posture that runs through Japanese culture, from tea ceremony to martial arts to moments of deep gratitude and respect. The sight of two Olympic champions, having just won gold, kneeling formally on the ice to await confirmation struck people around the world as something extraordinary, an unmistakably Japanese expression of humility at the very summit of achievement. Social media lit up with delighted bewilderment. Why are they kneeling? Some asked. They win gold and immediately go into Japanese kneeling style, others laughed. The reactions were affectionate and warm. It's incredible how they're basically in full seiza, so wonderfully Japanese. The two of them kneeling in front of the chairs is just too Japanese. I was crying, and then it made me laugh. In a moment of pure triumph, the pair had instinctively reached for a gesture of restraint and respect, and the world found it deeply moving. There was another reason Miura held his emotions in check even after the gold was secured, a reason that reflected the kind of athletes these two are. Seated right beside them were Germany's Hase and Volodin, who had just taken bronze. Having led after the short program, the German pair had stumbled in the free skate and slipped to third. And yet, in a display of sportsmanship that moved everyone who witnessed it, they were among the very first to celebrate the Japanese pair's triumph. Online, observers were quick to praise Miura's sensitivity. Riku held back his joy out of consideration for the Germans next to him. What a classy thing to do. To be that mindful of the people around you in a moment like this is genuinely extraordinary. But the most touching gesture came from the German side. Rather than retreating to nurse their own disappointment, Hase and Volodin went straight over to Miura and Kihara to congratulate them, exchanging warm embraces. Hase in particular bowed to Miura repeatedly, almost reverently, as if to say that the better team had won and deserved every ounce of the honor. Fans found the scene almost unbearably moving. Hase coming over right away is so beautiful. Hase and Volodin rushing to congratulate them on the spot. You two are amazing. Watching Hase and Volodin run to the Japanese pair, praise each other, and hug, and Hase bowing again and again was so endearing. Wait, why am I crying? In a sport that can be brutally individual, here was a reminder that competitors can also be one another's greatest admirers. Bruno Marcotte, watching his skaters from the boards, could not hold back his own emotion. His eyes glistened as the magnitude of what they had achieved settled over him. Speaking afterward, he returned again and again to a single word: magic. I had complete confidence in their free skate, he said. But what mattered most was that they were able to create magic. They skated from the heart, and you could feel the connection between them. It was truly like magic. Coming from a coach as analytical and experienced as Marcotte, the language was striking. He was not describing technique or strategy. He was describing something closer to alchemy, the transformation of two people, a piece of music, and a sheet of ice into a moment that transcended sport. When he reflected on the broader meaning of the gold, Marcotte was careful to share the credit. This was their achievement, he insisted. But I'm honored to have played a part in it, and I think it's something very special for everyone at the Japan Skating Federation who believed in me and supported me. It was their vision, their commitment to developing pairs skating, their willingness to believe in and support the skaters that made all of this possible. It was, in his telling, the culmination of years of patient institutional faith, not the product of a single magical night. If the performance itself was remarkable, the global reaction to it was almost equally so. Reports poured in from media outlets across continents, each grasping for words equal to what they had just witnessed. The venerable British newspaper The Guardian led with the language of high drama, framing the victory as a dramatic comeback and devoting careful attention to the human aftermath. The article described the pair shedding tears, kneeling on the ice in gratitude, and turning to face each other. For roughly 30 seconds, the paper noted, their expressions held a kind of stunned disbelief before smiles finally broke through. One lifted the other, but this time, the gesture was a celebration of the medal rather than the familiar tribute to the effort of getting there. The Guardian was equally clear-eyed about the scale of the achievement. At the close of the short program, the paper reminded readers the pair had been stranded in fifth, 7 points adrift of the lead. And yet they had taken the stage and delivered a flawless, commanding performance, bold, ambitious, and technically precise, posting an astonishing 158.13 inches the process. The American broadcaster NBC framed the win as the completion of one of the meet's defining comebacks. The network emphasized the power and overwhelming unity of the free skate, the season's best 158.13 inches the free and 231.24 overall, and above all the way the pair had elevated their performance precisely when the pressure was greatest. They had delivered when it counted most, securing what was now confirmed as Japan's first ever Olympic pairs medal, and not merely a medal of some color, but the gold itself, the capstone on the most dramatic turnaround of the entire competition. During the skate, NBC's commentator could barely contain himself, crying out that this was a truly magnificent program, one seemingly built for this exact place and this exact moment. But it was the analyst's commentary that proved most memorable. Tara Lipinski herself, the ladies' singles gold medalist at the Nagano Olympics, and someone who knows precisely what an Olympic title demands, delivered a verdict that fans would quote for days. "If you want to win gold," she said, "this is exactly how you skate. This is the model. That program just gave me goosebumps." Lipinski's praise grew more vivid as she dissected the quality of the skating. "It had tremendous speed and power," she observed, "like the waves of a great ocean constantly rolling in, pulling back, surging again. There's so much depth to their skating." On the technical front, she was no less effusive. "Tonight they were like a precision machine," she said. Technical accuracy and beauty of expression, the two were fused perfectly. It was that phrase, "like a precision machine," that seemed to capture the uncanny quality of the performance. Human emotion delivered with mechanical exactitude. The sports specialist voices were just as swept up. The official ISU figure skating account posted a flash update declaring that this had been showtime for Riku and Ryuichi. The respected outlet Golden Skate kept it gloriously simple. What a skate by the pair from Miura. Jackie Wang, one of the most prominent figure skating journalists in the American media, reacted the instant the score appeared. 231.24 total, he wrote. "Given the short program scores, there's really only one team that can beat this, Hase and Volodin, and they'll have to skate a perfect program to do it." Moments later, he reached for historical context, placing the performance among the genuinely great Olympic moments. "Miura and Kihara, that was a truly historic Olympic moment," he wrote, drawing a comparison to Savchenko and Massot's stunning come-from-behind skate in Pyeongchang, one of the most celebrated free skates in the sport's recent history. The New York Times added its own layer of context. The paper noted the broader competitive landscape, a games contested without Russian skaters, while celebrating the significance of the Japanese pair's achievement. In winning, the paper observed, Miura and Kihara had denied China's Sui and Han a second consecutive Olympic title, with the Chinese pair ultimately finishing fifth. But the Times also captured something forward-looking in the skaters' own words. "It still feels a little hard to believe," they were quoted as saying, "but we hope that what we did tonight can be the spark that makes Japanese skating better and stronger going forward." It was the statement of athletes who understood that their victory was not only a personal triumph, but a foundation on which others might build. Perhaps the most fascinating piece of coverage came from the Washington Post, and not for what it wrote after the competition, but for what it had written before it. Ahead of the free skate, the Post had explicitly forecast the possibility of exactly this comeback. The analysis was strikingly precise. "Yes," the paper acknowledged, "Miura and Kihara trailed the leaders by about 7 points. But that gap," it argued, "might be deceptive." The Gladiator free program, the Post observed, was grand and powerful, a showcase for Kihara's strength and Miura's rock-solid core. Those qualities, it noted, would be on full display in their assured lifts and their long-traveling throw jumps. Given the speed with which they completed their elements, the high quality of their execution, and the prospect of a clean skate, the paper concluded that if the German pair were to make a mistake, a comeback was well within reach. The prophecy came true almost to the letter. The post had seen, before anyone else, that the 7-point margin was less a wall than a mirage, that a program of sufficient completeness and quality could dissolve it entirely. It was a rare instance of pre-competition analysis being vindicated in the most dramatic fashion possible. From Canada, where pair skating enjoys a particularly devoted following, two voices stood out. Beverly Smith, a longtime skating journalist, was unabashedly emotional. "I was moved to the core by that performance from Japan stars Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara," she wrote. Bruno Marcotte was crying. "I cried too. That was the Olympics." For Smith, the performance embodied the very ideal the games are supposed to represent. The CBC's Devon Heru offered a narrative arc that traced the full emotional journey. Japan's Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara were devastated after last night's short program, he wrote. "There were tears, there was sorrow, but they never lost hope. Tonight there were tears again because they became Olympic champions on the back of a brilliant free program." In a few sentences, Heru had captured the essence of the story: despair, perseverance, and finally redemption. The signs, for those paying close attention, had been visible even before the individual event. In the team competition, reporters covering the figure skating events had already been struck by what the Japanese pair could do. The athletics reporter, watching their team events skate, admitted he was still in shock. "I'm still reeling from Miura and Kihara's performance. Wow." Inside Skating, the outlet run by Romanian journalist Florentina Tone, had rated them in the highest terms even at that earlier stage. "Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara are at the best of their lives," the account observed, "on a mission for an Olympic medal, an Olympic gold. And say what you will, there's simply no other pair like them right now." Former American journalist Lauren Wong was equally astonished by the team event showing. While generously praising the American pair, she could not help but note the gulf in class. "The U.S. team skated wonderfully, a season's best, I believe," she wrote, "but the Japanese pair surpassed even that. Miura and Kihara were exceptional, posting their own season's best and a jaw-dropping 15-point margin." Going back even further, the reaction to the official practice on February 4 hinted at what was coming. An overseas reporter who watched that session tweeted, still buzzing with excitement, that Miura and Kihara had just finished a run-through that was without question the cleanest he had ever seen them perform. He summed up his astonishment with a memorable flourish. "My jaw hit the floor." The potential, in other words, had been recognized by the sport's foreign experts well before the final. The Olympics simply provided the stage on which it fully bloomed. Within Japan, the reaction was an outpouring of joy. Across social media, congratulations flowed from current skaters and retired stars alike. Yuma Kageyama, who had just won his second consecutive Olympic silver in men's singles, posted with characteristic economy, "Riku and Ryuichi." Former national team member Nobunari Oda could not contain himself. "Congratulations on the gold, Riku and Ryuichi. The world's highest score in a moment like this, it's just unbelievable." Beijing ladies singles representative Wakaba Higuchi added her own delight. "It was just amazing." But the most emotional response came from Narumi Takahashi, who carried a special connection to this victory. She had once partnered with Kihara, competing alongside him at the 2014 Sochi Olympics. Her message overflowed with feeling. "Congratulations on the gold, Riku and Ryuichi. I'm so happy. Truly, truly, truly thank you." The post drew a flood of replies, many of them turning the spotlight back onto Takahashi herself. "Narumi, your bronze at the World Championships meant so much, too," one read. "It's because of you that this moment exists." In honoring the present champions, fans found themselves honoring the pioneers who had paved the way. Megan Duhamel, the former Canadian pair skater and one of the team's coaches, also shared her joy. "It was a truly wonderful experience to play a part in such a special journey," she wrote. "Knowing these two, working alongside them, and being inspired by them has been the greatest honor of my life." On Japan's NHK Tele broadcast, the commentary duties fell to former figure skater Narumi Takahashi, and from the moment the performance ended, she abandoned any pretense of professional detachment. "Amazing, amazing, 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 amazing," she exclaimed, the words tumbling out faster than she could compose herself. When first place was confirmed, the dam broke entirely. Even as the broadcast's analyst, she dissolved into tears. "There is nothing that makes me happier than this," she managed. And then, still weeping, she offered a reflection that revealed how personal the moment was for her. "I'm truly glad I found pair skating myself. she said, and a feeling this wonderful I can't even find the Japanese words for it. Her tearful commentary, raw and unguarded, moved countless viewers as much as the skating itself. Behind the world records and the global headlines lay a quieter, more human story, the story of how two people pulled each other back from the edge. In the depths after the short program, it was Miura who reached out to her devastated partner. Her words to Kihara were direct and unwavering. "It's not over yet," she told him. "We've put in all this work, we can absolutely do this. I'll skate for you, Ryuichi." Something in that simple act of devotion broke through. Kihara's resolve hardened, and he turned the sentiment back toward her. "I'll skate for Riku too. Let's skate for each other." The mutual dedication that had carried them through years of partnership reasserted itself at the precise moment it mattered most. Kihara's preparation that day was unusual. Before the free skate, he took a nap, something he ordinarily never does. He explained the reasoning candidly. "My sleep quality had been really poor," he said. "I got 8 hours, but it was as if I was sleeping and not sleeping at the same time. Even when I got on the ice, my body wasn't moving. And when you haven't really slept, you lose your emotional margin too." The nap, it seems, was the reset he needed. There was also a smaller, almost charming detail. In the interview area, Kihara allowed himself a small indulgence he had long denied himself: a glass of juice. "I hadn't had juice in ages," he admitted with a smile. He was even spotted drinking a cola, a tiny, human moment of release after the relentless discipline of Olympic preparation. And in a reversal of their usual dynamic, where Kihara typically leads and steadies Miura, it was Miura who did the supporting on this day. The gold medal, in the end, was the product of two people holding each other up. There is one more thread to this story, one that adds a layer of context to just how impressive the comeback was. Online, a theory had taken hold to explain the short program lift mistake, the toll of the team event. The argument found vivid support in another skater's fate at these very games. Ilya Malinin, the American prodigy known as the Quad God, had skated both the short program and the free in the team event, contributing enormously to the United States team gold. But when the individual competition arrived, something unraveled. Malinin sank to an almost unthinkable 15th in the free skate and finished 8th overall, his free score of 156.33 falling far short of his personal best. The image of his coach and father, Roman Skornyakov, holding his head in his hands after the skate became a widely shared symbol of the disappointment. The structural problem was clear. In men's singles, Japan had been able to split the load, Yuma Kagiyama and Haru Sato dividing the short program and free between them in the team event, preserving their energy for individual medals. But pairs skating offers no such substitution. Both the Japanese pair and Malinin had no choice but to shoulder the full team event workload before turning, exhausted, to the individual competition. History offered a sobering precedent. At the 2014 Sochi Olympics, Russia's Tsar, Evgeny Plushenko, skated both segments of the team event and delivered his country a gold medal. The cost was steep. He was forced to withdraw from the individual event at the last minute. Reports at the time included testimony that, the day after the team event, he woke unable to move his body at all. The lesson lingered that giving everything in the team competition can echo painfully days later in the individual one. Malinin's collapse and the Japanese pair's short program struggles threw that concern into sharp relief once again. Online, fans argued that the order of the events should be swapped, or that skaters might actually be better off skipping the team competition altogether. But Miura and Kihara answered the argument in the only way that truly mattered. They overcame the fatigue, delivered a flawless free skate, and beat back the adversity entirely. If anything, the hidden cost of the team event only makes their gold more valuable, a triumph won not in spite of exhaustion, but through it. Stepping back, the figure skating competition at these Olympics amounted to a remarkable showing for Japan as a whole. The team event yielded silver. In men's singles, Yuma Kagiyama claimed silver and Haru Sato took bronze. And at the summit stood Miura and Kihara with the first pair's gold in Japanese history. It was, by any measure, a generational performance from a nation that had spent decades building toward this kind of broad-based excellence. Reviewing the global reaction one final time, the depth of admiration is unmistakable. Britain's Guardian called it a dramatic comeback. America's NBC framed it as the standout upset of the meet. Tara Lipinski's verdict: "This is exactly how you skate if you want to win gold. This is the model. That program gave me goosebumps," speaks to the sheer perfection of the performance. And above all, the Washington Post's pre-competition prophecy, vindicated in full, demonstrated that the right observers had seen the truth all along. that with the completeness of the free program, Kihara's strength, Miura's core stability, and their assured lifts all functioning perfectly, a 7-point deficit was never insurmountable. Jackie Wong's astonishment at the official practice, "My jaw hit the floor," confirmed that the pair's potential had been recognized by overseas experts long before the final. What the Olympics provided was the stage on which that potential bloomed completely. This was the moment when everything came together for Riku Miura and Ryuichi Kihara, the bond between them, their instinct to support each other, and a level of technical mastery that stands among the best the world has ever seen. They overcame every form of adversity, the short program mistakes, the fatigue of the team event, the suffocating pressure of an Olympic final, and answered it all with the highest free skate score in the history of the sport. The gold medal that media and experts around the world celebrated is far more than a line in the record books, more than simply Japan's first pair's gold. It is a comeback that will be told and retold for generations, a moving testament to perseverance that has earned its permanent place in the history of figure skating. Riku and Ryuichi, congratulations from the bottom of our hearts, and thank you for moving the entire world. What did you think of this incredible night? Share your thoughts and impressions in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing and leaving a thumbs up.